Hey everyone, I'm Jeff from SkiEssentials.com.
I'm Bob. How's it going?
This certainly feels like it's marking a big event for us.
It's a very different environment.
Yeah, so this is our very first time publishing a full bike review on Ski Essentials. Our brick and mortar shops have been bike shops forever, really, and we're doing more and more online. So this is super fun. We're both riding a 2022, although it's kind of still current, Specialized Stumpjumper Expert, and just such a fun bike.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it yesterday, just the quintessential trail bike.
Yeah.
Kind of especially what we deal with here with a pretty good mix of single track, like some technical stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of,
Totally.
Not crazy long climbs, but
long enough. You can get a 1,000-foot climb here pretty easily. So we're here at the top of Hollapalooza, which is one of my favorite trails in the Stowe area. And then, yeah, we'll meet you back in the studio and we can chat a little bit about like my background on bikes, your background on bikes, a little bit different.
Yeah.
And yeah, look forward to it.
Hey, bikes.
So close. Okay. Love this part. Hey everyone, here we are back in the studio to talk more about this bike, which I'm having a really good time.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I like just being fresh off the trail, just kind of like what we do with the skis. We still have the dirt from this morning's ride.
Yep, tires are still dirty.
Yep.
And before we get into it, thought we'd kind of just touch on like our bike backgrounds. I grew up riding a mountain bike in southern Maine area, not too seriously. And then as a young adult, or gosh,
old teen?
About 20 years ago, I'd say I got a little bit more serious about it. Out of college, worked in ski and bike combo shops for a long time. And yeah, I've been riding mountain bikes pretty seriously for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Right now, my personal bike is a Scott Ransom 910. So pretty big bike, 170 travel. So we can talk about that a little bit when we get to how this thing feels. But Bob, I thought you could share your background.
Yeah, I'm not quite there in terms of that longevity of skill set. I basically started riding when I started working here 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I had always worked in the outdoor industry, like physically outside, so never had the time to ride bikes.
Yep.
And then when I started here, took it up kind of as an early morning activity and kind of progressed from there. So I don't have like a natural skill set. I started when I was 36 years old pretty much, so late in the game. My riding style is more conservative, especially on the downhills.
Yep.
I prefer pedaling and longer rides and all the single track that we have here, just more from an adventure standpoint rather than like I'm hammering down this thing.
Yep, which is probably reflected in your bicycle choice.
Yep, so I'm on a Rocky Mountain Instinct C70. 150 travel, so it splits the difference between what we're talking about here and what you have.
No, this is less.
Less. I mean, I'm splitting the difference.
You're splitting the difference, correct. Sorry.
So pretty interesting to get on something like this, and also interesting getting on different bikes.
Totally.
We take it for granted that we get on so many different skis and can really feel the nuance. Bikes is a different game altogether for us, and interesting to see how we progress into it.
Yeah, so here it is, Specialized Stumpjumper Expert. Pretty cool bike. I think full price was like $6,200, and
Yeah.
now it's on sale a little bit. There's definitely a lot of value here. 29-inch wheels, like Bob was alluding to, it is 140 travel in the front, 130 in the rear shock, 65-degree head tube angle. So it's like pretty slung out, slack bike. Definitely like, you know, real modern bike geometry, but definitely falls squarely into a trail bike category. Yeah. Bob, you were riding the S5, which I think is definitely your size. I was riding the S4. I am 5'10", and yeah, if you're into mountain bikes like I am, you probably know, or if you're 5'10" also, like almost always fall right in between sizes.
Yeah, you're a large.
Yeah, right. So in Specialized, I could ride an S3 or an S4. I rode the S4, which was interesting for me, and I think it did affect a few things for me, but I do think that's probably the size that I would buy for myself too. So yeah, definitely a trail bike here, pretty sweet. Bob and I both we were both not shocked, but both of us have considerably wider tires on our bikes. Yep. So that was something that was like, it took a little bit for me to get used to. But yeah, that's it for kind of overall bike design. As far as kind of a component set and build here, it's pretty slick. Performance Elite Fox suspension, both in the front and the rear. So we have a 34 in the front, which is kind of, I don't know, again, for me, like I'm not used to a 34. I ride a bike with a 38 on it. So at first it was a little weird to look down. And then it's a float DPS in the back. Float DPS, like, surprised me quite a bit. I left it like open the entire time, but there is a 3 setting, and you've got rebound settings on there too. So pretty well put together from a suspension perspective. XO1 drivetrain. So
that's an upgrade for me.
Me too.
Yeah.
So that was sweet. Just like the shifting is so crisp and just like perfect. So I thought that was just awesome. And then, you know, a very respectable wheel set. Aluminum rims, I think 30 millimeter internal dimension or internal width. And then we got a DT Swiss hub on there. So yeah, I got no complaints about the wheel set. Probably the only thing that I would want to upgrade right away, if it were my personal bike, is just throw a carbon bar on there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's hard going back. This was like my first experience going from carbon bars back to aluminum.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't horrible. I actually kind of appreciated the feeling, the stiffness, but
they're sturdy.
Yeah. You know, I think on longer rides, I'd feel it a bit more. But like you were saying, like for me on the S5, the fit kind of compensated for any lack of comfort that I sometimes experience on my own bike.
Yeah, and I think like pretty common for somebody to buy a bike of this tier. You know, if you're spending this much money on a bike, you're probably kind of fine-tuning the cockpit area by putting whatever bar and stem you like on there. So yeah, if you're buying this bike, I would just look into popping a carbon bar on there. But yeah, that's kind of the basics for component set. If you're interested in the full component set, just head on over to the written article or our product page, and you can get the full breakdown of components. But yeah, from there, Bob, what'd you like? What'd you like about it? I thought it climbed very well.
Yeah, and I kind of experimented more with that rear shock, the switching, and you know, for what we have here, it's usually in Stowe town trails, 6-7 minute climb. You know, on from there, but I always kind of throw it to the locked position for that, and like was really impressed at how much of a straight shooter this was and how connected I felt to the bike. That was what stuck out to me. It felt like we were very much the same machine on the way up, as opposed to two things working against each other.
That's very interesting, and I bet that really falls into a sizing thing.
Yeah.
My takeaway climbing was a little different. I was mostly impressed by just its efficiency. It's a fast climber. You know, every pedal stroke feels like it's going straight to forward momentum. There wasn't really any you know, and I kept it open for pretty much everything, and I didn't experience any tremendous pedal bob or anything like that. The one thing that was a little tricky for me climbing is my personal bike is a medium, and I did feel a little bit more stretched out, kind of like more leaned over in my torso, which I don't love being in that position climbing. For a number of reasons. I find when you're able to sit a little bit more upright, you can like breathe a little bit better. It's kind of opening up your lungs and stuff. So that was something for me. And it was, again, I think this was sizing. It felt like a little bit cumbersome in kind of like, switchback climbs, like tight technical switchbacks on an uphill. I just felt like the wheelbase was maybe a little bit longer than what I'm used to. And it is something that I felt, but I adapted to it pretty quickly.
Yeah, it is. It's longer too. When we put them on my bike rack, I noticed that just from a visual perspective, it sticks out further. And I'm always kind of searching for that.
You like the long wheel?
I do, yeah. Just because my focus isn't as much on technical downhill.
Well, and it definitely feels more stable.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it for sure.
Yeah. Just trail riding, just along like flat trails and stuff like that. Again, like its speed just really impressed me. It especially in a straight line, the thing just flies.
Yeah, so smooth.
Yeah.
I think that, we both kind of felt that going down a suspension.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we're on a 130 in the rear.
Right.
Like, let's see what this thing can do.
Totally.
And you definitely get the responsiveness. I think that that's a sweet spot for a lot of the trail riding that we tend to do around here. Lots of single track, tons of routes.
Yep.
Like lots of routes.
Yeah, so that was interesting, and we can talk about that now. If I owned this bike, I would end up fiddling quite a bit with small bump sensitivity. And there is, with this suspension setup, there is a limit a little bit to how much you can kind of tweak that stuff, like low speed and high speed compression. You can kind of play with it a little bit, but yeah, I thought it was maybe a bit harsh in like really chundery, rooty areas, but I think I also probably felt that more descending. So it's not like a super plush ride.
Yeah, totally.
There's like, this isn't the biggest rear shock. There's no like extra air chamber, but it did pretty darn well. And it was just another thing that I like kind of had to adapt to is like, okay, don't just like let it run through a rock garden.
And you're used to kind of doing this, and I feel like this bike had more of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit more of a skipper for me, I suppose. It was just kind of skipping along over things. But no, I thought it descends way better than I expected it would for this suspension travel.
Yeah,
like that was a big thing for me. I had like a similar phenomenon descending, where at first I had a hard time leaning it over into berms, and it's probably a little bit geometry that I'm not used to, but I think most of that was the size. I think a smaller bike I would have been able to lay over a little bit more easily.
Pretty darn dry out there right now, too. There's some conditions.
Yeah, no, it was hard to trust, I suppose, and that was probably a little bit of the soil conditions that we're riding right now. But we also have a lot of like fast, flowy trails in this area, and it is a absolute rocket on trails like that. Yeah. And trails like that are being built around the world right now. Like that is what is very popular in mountain biking. Obviously, like techie stuff's never going to go away, but fast flow trails they don't feel like they're going away either, and it just seems like there's more and more of them popping up. It was a dream.
And so do you think that this 130, 140 fits that a little bit better than 150, 170?
I do.
I do too.
Yeah.
That was one of my main takeaways, especially when we were hitting those smoother, flowy trails. This is a really nice compromise.
Right.
Between being a little bit too rigid and then being overly plush.
Right.
So, you know, is 150, 170 overkill for the stuff that 150 for me? Like, yeah, a little bit, you know, and I feel like this is more of a sweet spot for what I do mostly. I'm not bike park,
I think
I'm
it's
not
a
downhill.
good sweet spot for what most people do.
Totally.
And obviously, you know, if you want to like step up a notch in suspension travel, you can go to the Stumpy Epic,
right.
and like you get a little bit more. But yeah, if you're just trail riding, and even like, so for me, the reason I have a 170 travel bike is I do like going to bike parks and riding lift service stuff, but the older I get, the less and less I do that. So it's less of a priority for me. And it's even to the point where now, like, my next bike is going to be more like this.
Yeah.
Because this, you know, obviously you wouldn't want to like take this to your local bike park, like lift service bike park every weekend. You'd kind of throttle the suspension a little bit. But if you're going 2 or 3 times a year, you take this bike to a bike park, it's going to do just fine. Especially, again, if you're kind of sticking to that flowy stuff. So, no, I thought it was a super impressive bike. I think its speed and its efficiency and just overall like stability was the highlight for me.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that the S5 and with, you know, going to a narrower tire, you know, we're both on 2.6s going to a 2.3.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's interesting. You know, we end up riding a lot of wetter stuff around here too.
Yeah.
Like I do like having the extra rubber of the 2.6 for that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I trust it more cornering. I don't know why. Like I feel like it's a visual thing.
Yeah.
You just look down at that big tire, like the edges of those big tires, they just look like they're gonna grip and hold.
My mind is changing on this, you know, maybe a little bit wider in the front, but I think.
Oh, it's nice having a narrow rear tire, isn't it?
Yeah, I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, get a little bit more agility, which I thought was nice for this bike. I think if you slapped some big fat tires on there, especially in the rear, it would lose some of its kind of precision. Last thing I'll mention, I normally think things like this are like just downright kind of stupid and gimmicky, and
this one.
That has been my opinion about this system up until literally yesterday.
Yesterday morning.
So they have this SWAT thing where you can remove the water bottle cage, and then there's like a hole in the bike, which, yeah, I don't know. Again, I normally think things like this are extremely gimmicky, but we were out on the trail. We got like halfway down a flow trail, and I noticed that my handlebars or like my stem was a little bit off, and literally was able to take this out.
Yeah.
Of course, none of us had tools with us,
but right in town.
The bike had tools. So like, how cool is that? And I don't know. It completely changed my opinion on the SWAT system, which stands for, I always forget what it stands for. It says somewhere.
It's like snack, water,
tools, air. Snacks, water, air, tools.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I like it when people like put pizzas or hot dogs up there.
Yeah. So pretty sweet. Kudos to Specialized. So yeah, anything else you want to add, Bob?
No, but it's those little things, you know, these nice Deity knuckle duster grips.
I feel like we might have put those on.
Those are, I think it comes with.
Does it?
I think that's what I read, but anyway, nice little things. That, grips, I'll just, you know, even the saddle that comes with the bike
nice
is
saddle.
fine.
Yeah. I said, I think if I bought this bike, the only thing I would change is the handlebar.
Yeah. But no, overall, I think those little things really add up, and then just with that geometry and the smoothness of the suspension, I think it's a.
You know what I would do?
One.
I would buy an S4, put a carbon bar on it, and a 35 millimeter stem.
Okay, we'll see you out there on it.
Okay. So, yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if you have any recommendations, too. This was our first long-form bike review, and, I would be happy to accept feedback and recommendations.
Totally.
So, yeah, let us know if you have any questions, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
This actually did like better than my bike through certain sections in there.
I was way more confident on this, even
like
this thing. Took all I had not to like, take my hand off and try to
like that little like weird rooty gap by the tree, like 2 features above that stump gap. Like I got that so easily. And I feel like on my bike, I just kind of wallow out through there and then can't like pop. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Your quintessential trail bike.
Yeah.
Like you want a mountain bike and you're not really sure what you're gonna be doing on your mountain bike. This is a great mountain bike.
I think it's a good price too.